Hello and welcome to Full Focus, where law and news intersect. I'm Crystal Parham. Guess what? The New York primary is right around the corner, and guess what comes with that? Donald Trump and violence. Today we have criminal defense attorney Ben Perez in the studio to discuss the violence at Trump rallies and what we maybe can expect. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you for having me.
So, wherever Donald Trump goes, there's violence that just kind of seems to follow him. What do you think about this violence, and do you think his supporters should be prosecuted?
Well, I mean, certainly it's the first time I've ever seen a campaign where there's been this kind of violence. It does seem like it follows him everywhere he goes. Sure, if some of his supporters are attacking protesters or other people who happen to be at the event, then I think they should be prosecuted. Absolutely.
Well, let's just talk about what happened in the South with the 84-year-old man, Trump supporter, John McGraw. He sucker punched a 26-year-old African American man. Do you think he should have been prosecuted or should be prosecuted?
I did see that, and I do think he should be prosecuted. I mean, I think the video is pretty clear. This young man was on his way out of the event. He was being kicked out. He wasn't attacking anyone. He was just seemed to me like he was just voicing his opinion, and out of nowhere, this man comes and just sort of whacks him. It looked like he whacked him with his elbow,
Right.
completely unprovoked. So he should absolutely be prosecuted. I mean, it was a clear assault, caught on video. So
I
I
mean,
think
you're a criminal defense attorney. You've tried several assault cases, other more violent, like a felony type cases. What kind of defense do you see this Mr. McGraw mounting?
Well, you see, for Mr. McGraw, he's got a real problem, right? Because the events were caught on video. I think it's clear as day that there was nothing, or this 26-year-old wasn't doing anything but walking out when he was hit by Mr. McGraw. So, I mean, if I were Mr. McGraw's attorney, I would be looking, I more than likely would be looking to cut some kind of a deal for him with a reduced charge based on the charge of the event and the fact that you have a candidate who has kind of incited and sort of provoked this kind of violence, and depending on what his criminal history is, I mean, maybe he gets off with something that's non-criminal. I don't know. It would depend on what his criminal history is, but certainly it's not a case that looked ripe for trial or anything like that. He was caught on video hitting a man who was doing absolutely nothing but walking out. So if I was his attorney, I'd probably be looking to get him some kind of a reduced charge and use the sort of like the incitement by the candidate as a way to somehow get that for him.
Now, you mentioned the incitement by the candidate, and I want to talk about that a little bit because, there's an argument that Donald Trump is actually perpetuating this violence. In fact, he's making it part of his campaign, part of who he is. And do you think that there's any kind of criminal liability for him? And if you do, what would that be?
Well, I think these incidents have to be taken individually, right? I mean, certainly if you incite people to commit crimes and in the moment you incite them to do things that are against the law, you could be charged with inciting either a riot or provoking some kind of criminal activity. But he does say certain things during his speeches and during some events. Whether or not he said anything in that particular moment to trigger what happened with Mr. McGraw, that I don't know. I didn't hear anything specific that he said. In the moments preceding the incident with Mr. McGraw. But if it does happen around the same time, if during his speech he's telling people to behave violently or to attack someone, then certainly he should be charged with some kind of crime as well. Because I mean, it doesn't have to be at a political rally. Anywhere that you are, if you start inciting people to do these kinds of acts, uh, you would be charged with some kind of an offense.
You know, it's
So
it's interesting, not to cut you off, but it's interesting because he said things like, carry him out in the stretcher, in the good old days. Like he's really kind of, echoing back the good old days. Could he possibly mean, before the civil rights movements? I really don't know. But it seems like he's egging them on. Would you agree with that?
it if he said those things, it does seem like he's egging them on. Whether or not he told them to take a swing at him on his way out, I don't know. But I think it would, as a criminal defense attorney, if I had a client who was charged with inciting some kind of violence or riot, I mean, I would look specifically. It would have to be a very clear, in my opinion, it would have to be a very clear incitement. I mean, if he's telling people to knock him out, I think at one of his other events, he said, "I'd like to punch him in the face," and
That's right. That's right.
certain things like that. If he's making those kinds of statements, if he's saying punch him in the face, and then it happens, well, then now I think you really have something. It would probably be very particular to what words he says. And that's where it gets a little tricky. He's got to be clear in what he's saying, and people would have to take it as okay. He's calling to action. Take him out on the stretcher. What does that mean exactly? I mean, I think that one's maybe a little bit fuzzy and maybe not clear. But if he were to have said, somebody should punch him in the face or something like that, then you really have something, and that's a clear call for someone to do something to this gentleman as he's walking out. So I mean, I think it remains to be seen what if anything happens. Probably nothing will happen to the candidate himself, but certainly Mr. McGraw is caught sort of red-handed with the punch to the face.
Now, what about his campaign manager, who is increasingly, his duties have been increasingly shrinking as the days progress, but he is, in fact, the campaign manager. He's charged with simple battery to a Breitbart reporter, Ms. Fields, and apparently the allegations are that he grabbed her very forcefully on the arm and he left a bruise. Now, what do you think about that? Do you think that Mr. Lewandowski should have been charged? And if so, if you were his attorney, what would you do? How would you defend him?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think from the perspective of criminal charges, I guess it would really depend on, well, number one, it depends on his intent, right? Did he have an intention to hurt her in any way and assault her? I don't know. I did see the video of that incident, and it clearly shows him grabbing her and sort of pulling her away from Donald Trump. It does seem like he has some kind of, I don't know, his campaign manager seems to have some kind of issues with the people who are trying to either protest or get near Donald Trump and ask certain questions that they find, that they don't like. If he, in fact, I think it would depend on what injuries she had. Because, I mean, I think you can grab someone by the arm for any reason and not really intend on hurting them, not really intend on assaulting them. I think if you grab someone just, very lightly, it shouldn't result in any criminal charges. So I think it should be based on how hard he grabbed her. I don't know what the injuries were that she sustained. My understanding is that she had bruising to her arm. Obviously, the bruising would indicate that he grabbed her with some kind of force.
I mean, you and I, we practice in New York, right? And we see assaults all the time where there's bruising or a scratch or people being put through the system and looking at jail time. Why would this case be any different, do you think?
Well, I don't think it should be any different if, in fact, there was bruising and that was clear. Well, because then it's an indication that it wasn't just a soft grab to either get her attention or for some other reason. If there's bruising, then it sort of it strengthens, her version of the facts. It's also my understanding that he said that he never grabbed her at all, which
That's
is a
correct.
problem in and of itself.
Right.
Because now he doesn't even want to admit to the fact that he grabbed her. So if it was something that was, I don't know, if it was an innocuous grab, if he didn't mean anything by it, then why lie about it?
That's correct. Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.